Okay, welcome everyone. You've reached Grandma Mo and covering the WNBA first round playoffs. And we had game two between the Indiana Fever and the Atlanta Dream. So, you know, uh, my main team is the Valkyries, and we were in sixth place, and I wanted us to hold on to that sixth place for this exact reason right here. Out of the top four teams, Atlanta was the most vulnerable. And I felt like Minnesota's really hard to beat. Aces are really hard to beat, although they lost today too. Finally, I knew they were going to lose at some point. You can't just keep winning like that with these long streaks. That's the reason why they're so hard to do. So, but you know what? The Valkyries couldn't get it done when we needed to get it done against Seattle and secure that sixth spot. So, you know what? The Fever got it, and they did what they needed to do today. You know what? This game came down to two things. Indiana was 110% hustle. They were there for every loose ball. They were there for just, you could see their energy was higher than Atlanta's. The other thing, Atlanta was out of sorts from about the second quarter on. They were forcing things, usually, and this is the reason why I think, or I thought, and still do, that Atlanta's vulnerable, because it's usually that they rely on the three-point shot too much. They didn't so much this game. I mean, they shot bad from three, other than Pow Pow hitting some in the end. And they hit a couple along the way, but they were just, they had these drives to the hoop, and it was so forced. Like, I'm beginning to think, I mean, I busted up my knee. I was much older. I was in my 30s when I busted my knee. But I know from my own personal experience, I used to be able to jump almost, let's see, I don't know, somewhere between 2 and 3 feet high. I could jump. That was what gave, even though I was only 5'6", I could guard people bigger than me because I could jump. Well, after I hurt my knee, I couldn't jump to save my life. I mean, I was older, so that had something to do with it. But why I brought this up is Ryan Howard, on and off this season, she's been wearing that knee brace. And I'm watching her drive, and instead of, normally you'd take dribble, step, and up, and you would jump up to the hoop. She is staying on the ground and like falling forward. Go back and watch her when she's taking layups. And I've noticed it the last game too. And I'm wondering if her knee, she just can't really jump. Because she did have, I mean, she was out a little bit this season. And I don't know. It's just something that I'm noticing. And maybe she should just stick to outside shooting. But, lately she's been driving, and I've just noticed that. She's not jumping. She's falling forward when she's going in for layups. She'd probably be better off just to stop and then just take a short little jump shot rather than fading in. But Atlanta missed a lot of shots. I think they shot, I'll look, but Atlanta missed a lot of shots. They shot under 40% from the floor. But the biggest thing is they looked out of sorts. They were complaining to the officials too much. There was one play where Atlanta had the ball, and it was near the end of the quarter, but Alicia Gray was standing there arguing with the official while the ball's being in play. I get it. You know what? The stuff I saw from the officials in the Valkyries game, they were calling fouls on the Valkyries that weren't fouls, and it changed the momentum of the game. Would they have beaten Minnesota anyway? Probably not. But I understand that. I understand the frustration there. And it's like, oh man, that wasn't a foul. I mean, there were a couple in this game. But you can't let it affect you and be so out of sorts that you throw yourself out of the game. And I'm not saying Alicia Gray, she was one of them, but it was the whole team. They were rushed. They were, and maybe that's accredited to Indiana's defense. And then there were times where Atlanta's defense just completely fell apart. They had there was a play where, I can't remember exactly what was happening, but Atlanta missed a shot or something, and then the Fever just pulled the ball, rushed the ball up the court, and then it was like pass, layup. And Atlanta's standing there like looking around. Like, oh my God, what happened? And then their help defense wasn't there. There were numerous occasions where I saw that. And the Fever were able to get to the hoop. Sometimes when you get like pick and roll, you get picked off, and the person that is guarding the pick, the person setting the pick, will hedge at the person driving the ball until the other defender can recover. Well, I saw that happening, and then the person that did the hedge just let him go. Boom, layup right to the hoop. Because the ball defender hadn't recovered yet, or they were on the side of them. I saw that a few times. So Atlanta's got to regroup. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens in this last game. Because they're both, it's do or die for both teams, which is great for the fans. I mean, I'm not against either of these teams, but, but you want to see a great game. And you know what? Today was the Fever's night. They shot pretty well, and they were hustling, and that was the winning formula for this game. And they got it done. So congratulations to the Fever. It was a very hard-fought game, and, they got it done. Atlanta's going to just have to regroup and figure out a way to not get so distracted and so rushed and forced. And so a quick breakdown of the game. We had, let's see here. Indiana outscored Atlanta every single quarter. Every single one. 20-14 in the first. Then it was even in the second, 15-15. And then 24-15 in the third. And this was like, in the beginning of the third quarter, this was a 3-point game. It was like 40-37. I don't remember exactly when that was, but it was, I know it was in the third quarter, but it was, and then Atlanta, they were, even at that point, they were forcing stuff. But it was, Indiana didn't take advantage of it. And then, boom, that 10-point spree happened. And that's where I saw the breakdown. Atlanta's defense broke down, and then and then boom, it went up 10 points. And then they never recovered after that. So the third quarter, 24-15, and then 18-16 in the final quarter. And both teams had pretty much benched their starters. It was around the 5-minute mark, because it was like a 20-point lead. It was over a 20-point lead. Let me see here. See if we can. Turnovers were fairly even. The Indiana Fever actually had more turnovers. They had 15 and Atlanta had 13. Points off turnovers were fairly even also. So let's see here. So looking at the box score, you had. We'll do Atlanta first. We'll do Indiana first. So Indiana had only 3 players in double figures. Mitchell had 19, Aaliyah Boston had 15, and Howard had 12. And then Lexi Hull had 7 points. Sims had 5. Timpson had 9. It was nice to see Timpson get some minutes in this game. Powers had 3. Turner had 4. Shea Petty had 3. So it was mainly, the bigs. Howard and Boston basically outplayed Jones and Griner, although Griner wasn't really in the game that much. And don't even get me going on Atlanta's coach and the things that they have and they don't use. They have such an advantage. I've said that all year long, and that's why I don't know. It's, I mean, Atlanta has played pretty well this year and they've gotten by on some things, but, I've looked at them as being vulnerable and because they don't use the things that they have. I mean, they have clear advantages in height and they're not using it. I don't understand that. I mean, they've gotten this far, so maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't know. So shooting percentages. Kelsey Mitchell, okay, this is 3-point percentage. Kind of look here a little bit. Okay. Howard shot 62%, Boston 58, Kelsey Mitchell 46, Timpson was 100%. Let's see here. Lexi Hull was 33%. Let's see. There weren't a whole lot of threes. Kelsey Mitchell took the majority of the threes, and she was 4 for 8. Boston was 1 for 2 on threes. Hull was 1 for 2 on threes. Sims was 1 for 2. Petty was 1 for 3. So their shooting percentage on 3 was actually pretty good. Let's see. Nobody got a ton of rebounds. Powers ended up with 7. Turner had 6. Boston and Howard each had 5. Lexi Hull had 5. Anyway, it was a good all-around game for the Fever. And you know what? It mainly was just Atlanta shooting bad, playing bad, and just getting out-hustled. That was the majority of how the Fever won this game. They did what they needed to do. And then you're looking at Atlanta here, you have shooting percentages. Bree Jones was 4 for 6, and they stopped going to her. They should have been feeding her over and over and over again. But I don't know. I would have done it just to get Aaliyah Boston in foul trouble. If you got Aaliyah Boston in foul trouble, it's not like Bree Jones was in foul trouble. She only had 3. It's a clear advantage, and then they only play Brittany Griner like 16 minutes. Like, play them both at the same time. Do it high-low, or put them both on the block. Especially on defense. You could crowd the paint, and nobody comes in the paint. I don't get it. I'm not going to say anymore. It's just my thing. But bad shooting, like Ryan Howard, 3 for 9, 33%. She was 0 for 4 from 3. Hillman was 0 for 4 from 3. Gray was 1 for 4. Pow 3 for 5. She hit at least 2 of them in the last few minutes. She was 4 for 6. Let's see here. But, overall shooting percentage, Hillman 4 for 11. Gray 4 for 16. Canada 2 for 7. Griner 3 for 7. Coffee over 2. Caldwell was 1 for 2. But she didn't play that much. She was really good for them, later in the season. And now all of a sudden they're not even playing her as much. Anyway, Ryan Howard, 10 points. She was one of the 2 people in double figures. And Pow was 11. And she got to double figures in the last 2 or 3 minutes in the game. So then you had Hillman with 8, Jones with 8, Gray with 9. That is not a winning formula. 7 points for Griner. Canada only had 4 points. Just, Atlanta was they were out of sorts. Really shooting bad, forcing things. I hope they can regroup and give it a shot in the next game. Otherwise, the Fever are going to win. If Atlanta doesn't figure it out, the Fever could win, even in Atlanta. They're going to have to out-hustle them and take better, not force their shots. There's a lot of forced shots in this game. So anyway, let's hope for a really good matchup on Thursday in Atlanta and deciding game 3. Let's see what happens. Okay, everybody, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button if you can, and we'll see you next time.